My name is Sunny Summers. I'm a senior policy advisor with the Department of Ag, and I'm going to help Chris and Kevin with today's rules advisory or RAC meeting. I'm going to be kind of your stewardess and keep the flow of the show going. So a rules advisory committee meeting is intended for invited RAC members to provide feedback to ODA on rules that we've drafted, in this case to increase the nursery fees. And so we'll have Chris pull those up when we're ready and walk you through those. The next steps will be we will file these rules as proposed with the Oregon Secretary of State. That starts a 49-day clock of notification to the legislature. And then we will also have an open period for folks to submit written comments. And then I know we are intending to hold at least one verbal public hearing for people to provide feedback to the agency on those proposed rules. And I think our intention is to have these rules adopted by the first part of April with an effective date for the the fee renewals in July. Is that about right, Chris, on the timeline there? Okay, perfect. And so while these meetings are open to the public, the RAC members are the only ones that we are asking for input today. Please know that you can reach out to Chris or Kevin or myself, and I'll put the rulemaking email address in the chat for you as well. So, you know, if you are a public member that's here today, feel free to send us an email. And then know that you will again have opportunity to provide your own either written or verbal feedback during that public comment process. So with that, there's the email address in the chat. And for those on the phone, it's rulemaking@oda.oregon.gov. Also, if you just Google ODA rulemaking, we have a page that comes up. That email address is there. There's also a form that you can use, like electronic form to submit information. So many ways to find us. And with that, I'm going to go through the list of invited RAC members just so we know who's here and make sure everybody's knows how to turn off and on their mic and make sure that we can hear you all. So with that, let's start with Leonard Foltz. Okay, no Leonard. Mike Durkin. Ross Dumdy.
I'm here.
Awesome, thank you, Ross. Is it Leah Gershwell?
Lee Gershwell, yes, I'm here. Thank you.
Awesome, thank you, Lee. I'll make a note. And then Amanda Staley.
I'm here. Hi.
Awesome. Thank you, Amanda. Pat Thompson. Okay. Cody Thompson.
Yep, I'm here.
Awesome. Thank you. And then Mike Durkin. So Chris, I'm going to turn it over to you and Kevin if you want to bring up the rules. And so for invited RAC members, as we go through those rules, if you want to raise your electronic hand, it's across the top. It's kind of the third icon there. You can do that and I will call on you as you raise your hands.
Great. Thank you, Sunny, for doing the housekeeping for us. And again, thank you to the committee for gathering today and for others who have tuned in to listen to this morning's conversation. So hopefully, RAC members, you received the materials that I did send. So again, there was and those of you who are also calling in should have had access to the memo that was posted regarding giving some background as well as the purpose of why ODA is proposing the fee increase that we're here to discuss today. Thank you, Sunny, for posting that in the link directly. So for those of you who haven't seen those, that link has been posted in the chat and you can kind of read along as we're going through here. So just kind of a recap to get us to where we are today. The agency has found that we are in a need to increase our nursery fees, which we have not done in about 10 years. And the reason for this, a particular moment, is because the nursery industry is finding ourselves at a rather pivotal stage with the defunding of the Japanese beetle program. That provided a high level of assurance for the nursery industry, particularly in able to warrant us to be able to declare it as pest-free for Japanese beetle. This has allowed the nursery industry to ship relatively freely without a heavy amount of phytosanitary restrictions on our nursery products that are destined particularly to the Western markets within the United States, where Japanese beetle is not considered established as comparison to the eastern side of the United States, where this is a pest that has well been established for many, many years. So that is the environment we're currently operating in, and in response to that, already the agency has been putting in a fair amount of effort into pivoting and establishing a compliance program within the nursery program. And what that means is triaging our current resources in order to provide the oversight, the advising, and the certification services needed in order to ensure compliance to meet the now Japanese beetle restrictions that Oregon nursery stock is facing. This is a significant lift and a significant pivot that we are needing to do in a very short amount of time. As such, we have requested to increase fees by about 8.8% in order to support the increased capacity needs that the program will need in order to ensure continued market access and quality assurance for our exporting partners. So that's kind of where we are today, and that's what got us here. Previously, so just to reestablish that, the ODA, we do have authority to increase fees under our current legislative authority. We are required to request a budget limitation, i.e. we are required to request authority to spend any additional revenue that we take in this case through license fees, and we are required to request establishment of new positions. In this case, we are seeking to establish 2 new positions, and again, this is to build capacity for the program in order to better serve our customers within the nursery industry. In January, ODA did present before the Joint Subcommittee on Natural Resources to request approval that the limitation, again, the ability to spend funds, and the position authority, again, ability to create and hire positions, be included in the upcoming 2026 budget reconciliation bill that will be a part of the process during the current short session that has already started this past Monday. The end-all outcome of that would be the committee did approve recommending that ODA be allowed to pursue with the proposed fee increases, which will be targeted toward maintaining our market accessibility for nursery products and the establishment of 2 positions within the nursery program. So the fees within the materials that you were provided, and again, these were also posted on the ODA rulemaking webpage, is a copy of the proposed draft rule. So again, these are fee increases that would be implemented across all 3 fee types. I'm trying to share my screen here. There we go. That's not the screen you want to see. Apologies. That's the screen you want to see. All 3 fee types, which there are 3 within the nursery program. So in short, the titles are rather long, but in short, you have your grower license, your greenhouse license, and the license for retailers. So across the board, it would be the same percentage increase across all types. So again, the red line item is what the fee was before with the new proposed minimum fee previously being 148, now an increase up to 176. The max fee increase across all types previously was 25,000, is now being bumped up to about 29,675. Note that we did not have to request a cap. We are still well below the 40,000 cap for fee increases. So this was just, again, an adjustment across all the various tiers within each of those license types. We anticipate by our fiscal analysis that said revenue increases will amount to an estimated 700,000 over the next biennium. So we won't see that full amount in the current biennium as we're already nearly partway through. Hard to believe it, but there we are. So this would be in full starting in the 27-29 biennium. That is a high-level overview. So I'm happy to open the floor to the committee to initiate discussions.
Amanda.
Yeah, I know we're here just for nurseries. I understand that. When I was looking at the fee increases, I know that Japanese beetle doesn't only affect the nursery industry in Oregon. So I was wondering, is this something that is this fee increase for licensing going to be applied to other industries and agricultural commodities here in the state that will also be affected by Japanese beetle? Or is it just specific, just only nurseries?
That's a great question. Thank you, Amanda. So you are not incorrect that Japanese beetle is a pest that will have impact on multiple agricultural sectors. And I am aware that that is something that the Oregon Association of Nurseries has been conducting outreach to talk to partners across sectors in discussion of what support could look like in a future world. However, currently, the immediate impact is being dramatically felt by the nursery industry. So that is why this is being tackled first and foremost. Secondly, many of those agricultural producers are not licensed with the agency. We do not require licenses for, say, a hazelnut grower or a blueberry producer for those reasons. We provide services to inspect, those raw commodities for export, especially for international export, but they are not licensed operators like nursery or Christmas tree growers.
Thank you. Lee?
Yeah, just a quick follow-up question to that. Of course, one of the ways that other industries participate in the ODA is through the trapping program. I know we have a regular production farm, and quite often we have ODA traps on the farm. And as we are grass seed growers, I mean, that's a pretty attractive site for Japanese beetles. So going ahead, not immediately, but going ahead, would there be, I guess the other question would be, there some cost sharing between other commodities, particularly for the trapping program? Is that a discussion that's being had within the ODA?
Thank you, Lee, for the question. Yes, but again, that will take time to establish a mechanism for how these other ag sectors could pay into some form of a state program. So again, immediately, that is not a short-term resolution. That is more of a long-term resolution.
And I guess that would be my concern is, we're dealing with this particular issue now, but there will be another issue in the future. So if we could get some other payers into the system, then we'll have a little more capacity when those other issues show up.
I thought you might have something to say, Ross. Go for it.
If we do increase this and approve it, is there a method of communicating to the governor that we as an industry stepped up, and opportunity for her to try to help bridge the gap as well?
So I would direct that question directly to your association. However, I will say that as a part of the when we presented to the Joint Subcommittee Natural Resources, we were asked, did the agency have support from the industry? And I am aware that the association did write a letter of support for this directly to that committee.
Yeah.
I would just jump in real quick as well and say, we are working with the natural resource policy advisors in the governor's office weekly on all of these topics that are hitting us from all directions, this being one of them. So we've definitely been communicating with the governor's office in that regard as well. Cody and then Amanda.
Yeah, so we got numbers on where sorry, got a little distraction in the background. Basically we got numbers on approximately how many nurseries there are, like and those things, but we didn't get numbers on the estimated amount of revenue and ultimately or how many people are in the 2 million plus area, things like that. And those numbers are going to be crucial to understand approximately how much money that the ODA is going to be able to receive from these fee increases. So I guess my real question is, we have an estimated $700,000 for the biennium on this. So is that approximately $315,000 or $50,000 per year? So we're estimating from the 2026 that it's going to bring in $350,000. I guess my question with that is, would we be able to see the numbers of the nurseries in which bring in those set amounts of revenue? Because then that would give us a better understanding of being able to calculate those numbers.
Thank you, Cody, for the question. So in other words, the request from the RAC would be to see a breakdown of what the estimated revenue will look like across the various fee scales within each license type.
More so how many growers bring in that set amount of revenue? Because when I tried to sit down and figure out how much money the ODA was going to be bringing in for that, there was just missing numbers there. So I don't, I'm a small grower, so my
Right.
fee is going to increase from 148 to 176, something like that. But I don't know how many people are going to just be a very slight, like $25 increase, and how many people are going to be bringing in like a $5,000 increase on that. Those numbers would just kind of help me get a better understanding of how much money the ODA would be able to bring in through this fees increase.
Right. So that's what I meant, like by the tiers. So if you look at the draft rule, like for example, yeah, I guess the short answer is the reason you don't have that is because I didn't give you an estimate. You would need to know the estimate breakdown of the number of licenses within each of the payment categories that is based on their amount of revenue that they have fiscally. So that's what I meant by the tiers. So depending on what your income, your revenue rate is, you fall into one of these subcategories with the base fee plus a millage rate that's added onto whatever that base rate for that amount. So that's what I meant by the breakdown. That's what you're asking for.
Yes.
And then just before we jump to Amanda, there was a question in the chat about the total number of licenses. It's a little over 2,600. Is that right?
Yeah, I did provide that number. Let me double check before I misspeak. Yes, about 2,867 nurseries is what we had licensed with the agency in 2025, with a breakdown of 310 nursery stock growers, 812 nursery stock dealers. Oh, excuse me, I misspoke. 310 greenhouse growers, 812 nursery stock growers, and about 1,700 dealers.
And I think we can probably get the breakdown within those tiers for folks as well. And post it on the rulemaking page. Amanda and then Ross.
Hi, and I could be, maybe I missed this information too. So this is something I had a question about. So I know that the program at some point, we were like $2 million short of continuing the program. I'm sure that number changes the further out of this program we are. So assuming that this happens with this 18% increase, is it a one-time increase? Does it stay? Is there an expiration? What happens if this program ends up getting funded and is put into the budget through the state? Does the licensing fee stay at that 18%? Does it end up expiring after a certain amount of years? And then moving forward, I know that it's been a while since there has been an increase, and when it does, it's kind of larger. Is there something in place discussing like maybe more set annual increases or something like that? I'm just trying to figure out if this gets funded, does this end up going away, or are we staying at this 18% increase, and just kind of what that process looks like?
Yes, that's an excellent point. So I'll step back just a little bit because you mentioned a $2 million figure. So just to be clear, that funding that is no longer a part of our agency budget was not related to the nursery program specifically. That was the function of our insect pest management program that conducted treatments of known Japanese beetle hotspots, trapped in known Japanese beetle hotspots, as well as conducting a statewide surveillance program in order to prevent or detect early introductions of Japanese beetle across the state. So that was what the agency was receiving for the past, handful of biennia, approximately 2 million. There were some biennium was just under, some biennium was just over. And then the last biennium, the 23-25 biennium, it was actually reduced to about 1 million. So that's kind of the financial trajectory of that. And then we went down to 0, which is why we're having this conversation today. The second part of your question is, are these fees permanent? Yes, the fees will stay. Once fees are established, they stay in place unless they are changed by the agency. So that is meant to be a sustaining factor. Now, the question of, is there conversation about how to have a more measured cadence of evaluating fee increases and doing, something a little bit more measured over the long run? Yes, we have been having conversations, and not just in our program, but that's been more of an agency-wide approach that has been implemented in some other programs already to implement through rulemaking a more not regulated, but a more measured approach to fee increases by having a set percentage rate that then would go into effect every X number of years, which of course has been done under in conversation with their respective industries. So that is not an agency-wide thing, but that is an approach that we think is worthy of conversation.
Thank you. Ross?
Can someone explain to me, please, what is the requirements to have this license to distribute plants outside of our state? Because I've heard there's a fair amount of nurseries that aren't in this program. So what is the requirements? I'm not sure if I understand that.
So by the program, I'm assuming you mean to operate as a nursery within the state of Oregon. You are required by statute, which was one of the documents I shared, that does say that if you are a retailer, grower, greenhouse grower, or a nursery stock grower, you are required to have a license with the ODA if you sell $250 or more of nursery stock. So we have that requirement here.
Okay.
On the other hand, when you export to another state, they often have it in their requirements that there has to be some kind of proof that you are a licensed entity within the state that you are shipping from, which is why when you send your nursery stock, you're usually required to send your copy of your nursery license, that says, when it's valid through, when you were last inspected by. That's basically then vetting to your destination state, like, yes, I am a licensed entity with the Department of Agriculture.
My second question, is this increase going to be earmarked for these type of needs? Or is it gonna, the increase go into a general fund and we're back to square one?
The, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm interpreting your question to mean, does the revenue that will be accrued from the proposed fee increases, will those be, will they stay within the nursery programs fund?
Correct.
Yes. These are fee revenues specifically for nurseries, specifically for the nursery program and its operations.
But is it earmarked to the Jap Beetle program? Or can it be used elsewhere and then we become shortfall for this whole?
It is the part of the reason that we, like I said before, just to recap, was to support additional staffing, which will be required in order to provide the functions for what we're calling the compliance program that we are establishing in order to meet the market access needs for the Japanese beetle requirements. So this is to help pay for those personnel and other services that will be incurring.
Lee.
So Ross, just to follow up, I believe we did talk about 2 additional personnel being onboarded, but as I understood, it isn't completely binding. And that's why I think my question about if we could get other commodities to kind of help cost share some of this, then in the future when we have something else, we're not restricted to Japanese beetle, but hopefully we have the staff in place. But I don't know if there is sideboards for requiring a certain staffing level. I'm not sure, because I mean, you do lose people with retirements and stuff. So Chris, that I guess would be a question is, is there a minimum staffing level sideboard we could, or how would that work?
I'm not sure I fully understand your question, but I guess the part that I did glean from what you asked was, is there a quota for the staffing level for the program? I mean, within any program and any agency, you are staffed at the level at which you have position authority and at the level at which you have funding to support those positions.
Okay, so, but we don't have, so we're at our maximum staffing level for our current.
We have a full
level.
staff currently. So as
For
of
our current
this
funding
moment
level.
right now, the nursery program is completely staffed. Yes.
Okay, and so then this increase will bump that full staff to an additional 2 positions.
Correct. And that is in part to support the additional work, as I've previously mentioned. Also, so we can continue to provide the services that the program already does, because we understand the demand that the Japanese beetle compliance program oversight is going to put on our current staff, in addition to other export needs that the nursery program will need for inspections going to other destinations, for other compliance programs that are ongoing. So that is to make sure that we can maintain our current service levels.
And Mike Durkin put a comment in the chat. Mike, you're welcome to come off mute if you want. I don't know where you went. There you are.
I'm here.
Yeah, why don't you go ahead and just ask your question?
So my question is again, this funding goes to the nursery leg of the ODA, but it's the pest management group that actually handles the eradication of the trapping.
Mm-hmm.
So I just want to be clear, these funds will not end up in any way, shape, or form with the pest management group, as I understand it.
That is correct.
And so, again, obviously the goal of the industry is to fund the ODA to the point of reinstatement of the trapping and treatment. So what happens next? I know, I partially know the answer, but I want to hear it again, I guess.
Sure, no, not a problem. So you are correct that the fees will be staying within the nursery program. And to provide a little bit of bigger context around that question, you are correct that it was what we refer to as the IPPM program, or the Insect Pest Management or Insect Pest Prevention Management Program, which was conducting the JV program as it historically had been. That was a program that cost approximately $2 million annually to operate. So with revenue from license fees, we could not accrue enough funding to support a program like that. That being said, your question relating to, what are the other options? I am aware that the association is exploring other funding options and mechanisms, kind of much to what Lee referred to earlier. How are other ag sectors buying into this to find support? Because knowing that this is something that impacts multiple ag sectors beyond the nursery industry, those are all conversations that are being had. So options are being looked at, but there's nothing definitive that I can share with you at this moment.
Okay.
Okay. Even though it's not a RAC member, I do feel there's a great question in the chat. So given the time it takes to make a rule change and presuming the fee increase is approved, what's the likelihood that the funds will be available before the 27 season, so the industry will only be impacted in 26?
So by funds, Tyler, I'm assuming that you were referring to specifically the revenue that will be taken and earned, I guess I should say, from the fee increases. We will start seeing those fees, that revenue come in starting in 2026
Right, that would start July.
of this year.
The July, this program runs on a July to June licensing schedule. So folks getting their licenses in July would be paying through this increased fee schedule.
Correct.
Cody. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Chris.
No, that's fine.
Okay, Cody and then Ross.
Yeah, so I'm just curious, what kind of oversight will be necessary for this, the extra implementation that is basically requiring these increases in fees?
I'm going to allow Kevin Bailey, who's with us today, who is the program manager for the nursery program, answer that question.
All right, so let me understand the question a little bit better. Is that you're asking what kind of oversight will we provide as a program using the fees that we will be collecting from the increase? Is that correct? Is that the question that you're asking?
Yeah, so just a moment ago, we were talking about that these fees will be used specifically in the nursery program, and that these fees are basically being put in place due to extra staff being required for these CQC requirements, or these compliance of quarantine compliances, nurse certificates. And so we're gonna need at least 2 new staff members.
Correct.
$350,000 a year for 2 new staff members, and then it also was saying that there will be more oversight. So I just kind of want to figure out what that oversight ultimately is, where $350,000 in a year is going.
Okay, so with the increased requirements for the Japanese beetle to the Category 1, Category 2 states, there's a protocol that has to be followed, be that via trapping, via pesticide usage, screenhouse. Each of those protocols require oversight from a nursery inspector. So as we issue these CQCs, the inspectors are going to have to monitor or review trapping records, they're going to have to review the pesticide records, they're going to have to review and do inspections if a screen house or a greenhouse is going to be used as your exemption mechanism. And so all of these particular processes take time. So what we're doing is we're backfilling some of the other processes to support those inspections or reviews. Just from a personnel and hour wise, the amount of hours it's going to take additional to our normal inspections will increase pretty drastically. You figure sometimes an inspection might take an hour if the inspector is actually on site looking at the phytosanitary reasons. These are going to add another half hour, 45 minutes to an hour. We don't exactly know how long it's going to take, but it's going to be a significant time increase for these things. And, shipping season is already busy as it is. So these additional personnel will be able to support that and either help with the review of the records or, assist wherever we can have them assist. So they'll just be able to take the load off some of your normal NRS3 inspectors. Does that answer the question?
It does partially answer it. I will have to say that with that, I know nursery owners that haven't had an inspector come out to their place in over 10 years. And so with the expectation that putting on 2 extra people is going to be able to fulfill this, I don't think that's realistic. And I mean, I'm just going to go ahead and put that out there. One other thing that I would like to put out is that I kind of deemed it disrespectful that this Japanese beetle eradication program was not brought up at all in any sort of way that the funding was going to disappear. I spoke to my inspector like 1 month before this went down, and they didn't bring this up in any sort of way. And I mean, the inspector is supposed to be there to protect the nursery owner to make sure that everything's going well. And for this person to not bring it up in any sort of way, I felt like they weren't on my side. So I'll just go ahead and put that out there.
Okay. I think we're trying to have that conversation with the industry on an individual basis with the nurseries. This is a challenge for us, and then we'll make progress and make sure that we get out that communication to the industry.
Okay, thank you. Ross and then Lee.
Mike, you did a better way of articulating my question earlier, so thanks for asking that question. It clearly, I think, I'm just going to use my dumb farmer hat again, that this fee increase is only going to the inspection side because I feel we have been, even me personally, that have tried to be very close to this Jap beetle situation, thinking some of this increase in fee is going to go back to the actual trapping and the eradication. But as I hear this today, it is not. Correct?
No.
I didn't say that correct?
No, you did. No,
Okay.
you said that correct. And
Okay,
I'm saying
okay.
no, sorry. No, yes, you are correct.
Because we've, as nurseries have talked about, is passing a hat, doing what we can do to get this trapping and eradication system back in place to get back to that Cat 1 status. In all truth, would reduce the need of the inspector side of things. The reason we're at this table today is because we were losing that Cat 1 status and truly needing the additional fees because of the inspector side of things. Correct.
Correct. I have to confess where the miscommunication occurred of how these fees or what these fees were going to be used towards. I can't comment on that.
Fair. I'm fair.
Yeah.
But thank you for the clarification, and thank you, Mike, for articulating the question better than I did. That was where I was heading earlier with my question.
Right. And I guess just one follow-up comment I'll make to that, Ross. So again, as I stated before, we haven't had this increase in 10 years. Obviously, this was a lot to put on the table all at once. It took, I guess, a crisis for this to get pushed forward. But I will point out, mentioned, also alluding to kind of what Cody mentioned, we're aware that there are licensees who are not probably getting the oversight and contact with their ODA staff as they would want or should get. If we have 3,000 nurseries and we have about 9 staff across the state responsible for all of those entities, it's difficult for us to meet that. And this is the largest agricultural sector within the state.
Cody, is that in response to what Chris was saying? Yeah. Go ahead real quick, and then we'll go to Lee.
Okay. Okay, it goes right on with that, and also these phytosanitary certificates are supposed to have on-site inspections, yet we're not even able to get inspectors out annually. Like, I just don't even think that that's realistic, Yeah, and the phytosanitary certificate's good for 30 days, so we're supposed to have an inspector out every 30 days.
Those inspections for the CQC, not the phytosanitary inspections. So we're shooting for the 30-day CQC. But yes, we should have inspections the inspector will be on site every 30 days. And as Chris alluded to, there are some nurseries that we've missed every couple of years that is on our list to correct, to visit every nursery within a 2-year period. But for this particular scenario with Japanese beetle, I think that visiting with the support from these positions will be able to make that requirement.
Thank you, Kevin. Lee, thank you for waiting patiently.
No problem. So a couple of comments. One, Cody, you talked about like the increased staff and what the staff was doing. So I know as a greenhouse grower, I do get a visit from the Department of Ag annually. Typically, we instigate that visit, so we call for an inspection. So sometimes it's on the grower to call for inspections and not just wait around for someone to show up. But I do know that this program, unlike other things like boxwood blight or box tree moth or things like that, does actually impact us greenhouse growers. So I know that for my own business that it will require more work from our inspector that we work with. So I know that that's going to happen. And on a wider scale, if you're concerned about overall Natural Resource Agency funding, I would welcome you to come down to Salem and join us at the legislature and explain to people that, it's a very small spend in the state budget, as it is even in the federal budget, to support natural resource agencies, including Fish and Wildlife and the Water Department. But it's really vitally important to a pretty big economic sector in our state. So it is unfortunate to see the eradication program go away, but I mean, that would require, I think, even additional funding. So, I mean, we can try to ask for it, but I'm not certain that we're in the priority list for the current administration or leadership in our legislature. But we can always vote differently and try and get our voices heard.
Very, very eloquently put. Thank you.
Yeah, and I would
Amanda?
like to chime.
Go ahead, Ross.
I'd like to chime in. I do want to thank what you guys are going through right now, the ODA group. You're doing your best. This is a unfortunate challenge and has been really responsive, and it is always communications, a two-way street.
Thank you, Ross. Amanda, I know you had your hand up and then you lowered it.
I was just going to actually echo what Ross just said. Yeah, I appreciate the work you guys are doing. And I know that this was not planned. Cody, I don't know how much, if you knew, but everyone thought we had this in the bag. So with this funding came kind of out of nowhere. So I understand why maybe you weren't informed by an inspector. But also I encourage you, I don't know if you're a part of the OAN, but that's where everyone has heard a lot of it. There was a ton of publication and information about that online ahead of time too. So if you're not, that's just my little plug to tell you that if you know, these things, they put out red flags for you, and you get information sent out all the time about these things that are really vital to our industry. Because there's a lot of it, and the ODA can't be the only one calling each nursery grower up or something. And so that'd be something I would encourage as well, for sure. But yeah, no, we're in a bad situation, and I guess my comment is, this is a great way to kind of get us to move forward and be able to continue to ship our material and plants. And we're having to step up and kind of take control with the help of the ODA to like deal, with it as an industry head on. And so I just appreciate the help that you guys have put forth to help our industry as well, because this is vital. And we're, like Lee said, the largest agriculture sector in this state. And without this, it's going to be a hit for us this spring and then going forward as well. So I do appreciate it as well. That's it.
Thank you, Amanda. Pat Thompson, I noticed that you joined us, and I just want to make sure that you have an opportunity as a RAC member to share any questions or thoughts that you have.
My God, am I there? Can you hear me?
Yep, there you go.
Hi.
Yep, absolutely.
I am one of those people that hasn't seen an inspector for 11 years, and I'm shipping with a 2014 shield that says that I do get inspected regularly, and I don't get any return contact when I try to contact my inspector. I've been told that there's not enough inspectors and they're not coming, and I wonder what I'm paying for a nursery license. I'm also wondering if there's a plan to get a funded program back in place for the trapping and eradication for 2027.
I will thank you, Pat, for your question, and thank you for joining us. I will answer the latter part of your question, and I will let Kevin refer to the former part of your question. The latter part of your question, there are conversations I believe the industry is having and exploring avenues in order to re-envision what funding could look like in order to support the Japanese beetle trapping and treatment program, as it were. But I don't have anything definitive to share with this group.
Okay, the eradication part is basically gone for 2026, correct?
But yes, we did not
Right.
receive funding as a part of our current budget for this biennium. So
it will be up to the individual nursery owners then to foot the bill for that if we need to do it.
It is currently, yes, that is why we've created the compliance program, in order to guide the industry what they need to do, how they need to do it in order to meet the restrictions for JB in order to ship out of state, particularly to the other JB free states in the West.
Okay. And only the nurseries technically that ship out of state will be required to do the compliance certification, correct?
Correct.
Correct. So technically the Japanese beetle could spread throughout the state in 1 year and really causes some serious problems.
Not in a year. The beetle's not going to spread that far. Models have shown, I think that Washington State University did put out a model kind of looking at how far JB can spread if they were to, well, they do have Japanese beetle already, but if it were to get out of control and spread, it would take several years for it to spread statewide.
I hope so. I'm from Illinois, so I'm familiar with the pest.
Well, there you go. Yes,
It's
so
scary,
you're
yeah.
aware of the damage that these beetles can cause, but this is not something that will happen overnight. Now, that be said, human-mediated spread is a concern. So if someone decided to pick something up and move it to another part of the state, you're not incorrect to have that foresight to say, well, unless we're out there actively monitoring for the beetle, we may have an infestation pop up in another part of the state and may not know about it for some time.
Right. Do we know what the percentage is of the nurseries that are shipping out of state versus the nurseries that are not?
We wish we knew that number. We are aware that the association did put out a survey that went out to all association members. The ODA also shared that survey through our listserv to all licensed nurseries to get a feel for what those numbers are going to look like. That in part was because we needed information to kind of get a wrap our heads around of what the compliance demand was going to be for these increased services, in addition to our partners in at the other states Department of Agriculture were asking, well, you know, how many nurseries are shipping into Colorado? How many nurseries are shipping into Nevada? And that unfortunately was information we could not share with them because we
Right.
didn't know.
Okay. All right. Okay. And back to the inspection question.
So I do not have a good answer for you, Pat. But what I am going to do is, number one is you should be getting an inspection at least annually. And you should not be using a 2014 Shield. We try to
And
issue our
I
shipping.
am not the only one.
Unfortunately, I know that now. So, but what I am going to do is I'm going to talk with the inspector. But we reissue our shipping permits on an annual basis now. So they should expire at the end of the fiscal year. And the inspector will do an inspection and reissue those shipping permits annually. And so that is the goal that we've tried to implement over the last couple of years. And obviously there's some holes that we've missed, so that we're going to
Big ones.
try and fill those in. And but I will contact your inspector. It is Secret Gardens, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Secret Garden
So,
Growers.
and then
I have
Cody, are you in the
contacted her
same
twice, but I
situation?
don't get any response.
I'm sorry, say that again, Pat.
I've contacted her multiple times, but I do not get a response.
Okay, I will fill that hole in for you and make sure that it gets taken care of. So,
Thank you.
Cody, are you in the same situation where you haven't been contacted in a while?
No, I'm not in that situation. I'm actually, this is my first year being a nursery, so you know, I'm excited to be part of this, but at the same time, I kind of wish I would have held off for a couple more years, I guess, because came in at a bad time.
Cody, we have a saying, bad news doesn't get better with time. So you might as well just jump in now.
Awesome. Okay. Any other questions or comments? I do have one piece that I want to address, but I want to make sure that folks have had the opportunity to jump in, the invited RAC members. Yeah, Cody.
Just one more question. Where can we find information? I know that it was talked about a couple weeks ago for the private trackers. Is that document ready to be able to find those people, or where should I look for them?
The association is kind of putting that list together. We are having regular meetings with the trapping group, and we will. There's some challenges involved, but we're working through the process. But right now, I reach out to the association and see where we're at, what the list looks like, and you know, any recommendations that they have. You know, we as the ODA, we cannot recommend a particular company over another. So make sure the OEM's handling most of that vetting process.
Thank you. Okay. So when we do file these rules with the Secretary of State, one of the pieces that we are asked to provide is the fiscal and economic impact. That's kind of one question. And then the other piece is the cost of compliance. So particularly of interest for us from this group is the, what is the effect on small businesses, which many of you meet the qualification for small business. And so the way they word it, I'm just going to read it, is describe the expected reporting, record keeping, and administrative activities and cost required to comply with the rules, and estimate the cost of professional services, equipment, supplies, labor, and increased administration required to comply with the rules. So kind of that whole piece. And if you don't have an answer today, feel free to email us at that rulemaking or Chris directly, as I think many of you have her contact, but want to give a little bit of time for that. So Mike, let's start with you.
So just to forewarn you, you asked the question, okay?
Yeah, no, I know it's like open can of worms.
Yeah. So there's two aspects of this, and it's a great question, and I'm actually very glad. I will probably also send an email just so that you have it in writing. But I'm a small nursery, and the ODA and the OAN have always been my protection against situations like this. I have a very small crew and a very small budget, but I've been in business for 30 years. So I haven't, again, had to deal with something like this prior, other than SOD, which it affected and affected me, right? So the first thing I'd say is that, I've gotten more involved in this than anything relative to the nursery business outside of my 40 acres. I can tell you without hesitation that there are thousands. I know that the group here is feeling the pain relative to the ODA, is feeling the pain of this. But what I don't know that you fully understand is the thousands of hours of the private sector that are spending time and or losing sleep over this. And your question is a good one. Again, it needs to include those man hours as a cost to the industry, because people's heads are spinning. You cannot talk to another nursery person without spending 45 minutes beating the Japanese beetle topic to death. This is a huge deal, and I feel like it's one of the things that our leaders in Salem do not account for. We have businesses to run. I am a small business, a very small business. And the amount of time that I'm pouring into this is insane. So that cost needs to be accounted for somehow. The second thing is that eradication and or treatment is a reasonably free-flowing term in the nursery industry. I don't use chemical pesticides, nor do I want to use chemical pesticides. My legacy is going to be one of not using chemical pesticides. Again, I understand that in most nurseries, it is considered the cost of doing business. I'm lucky in that I don't have to include that in my costs. I'm not saying that I don't use pest control, but it's not accepted pest control by the ODA. So in essence, it's not, there is no control. This is a tipping point for my business. If other states like Nevada say that everything has to be treated, leaving my property before they will accept it, if that domino starts to fall throughout these other states, it's not going to leave me any good choices. So I'll leave it at that.
Thank you, Mike. I appreciate that. And I want to things are rough in our country right now and hard, and it just feels like we keep getting piled on. And I want to make sure that folks are aware of a resource through OSU Extension called the Agri-Stress Hotline, and it's staffed by folks who have familiarity with the agricultural community. As you're talking to your neighbors and others, if they are experiencing mental health crises or could use resources like that, I want to make sure that you're aware of that. So I'm going to put that in the chat. And then, Mike, your hand is back up. Did you have more, or did we just not get your hand dropped?
Just did not get my hand dropped.
Okay, perfect. Amanda and then Cody.
When talking about, you know, the effects on the, like, on our business or things with this increase, yes, obviously another small business, everything's more expensive right now. And we look every day, you know, every year, I mean, our budget continually, like the overhead is increasing everywhere. However, when I look at this and this percentage increase for our licenses and things like that, that dollar amount that it would be for us, is easily offset because of what we ship out of state. And even one order canceled, just that portion to one of those states, that's going to affect us. It's not even in comparison. So as even though it's definitely not a great situation, and I don't love doing it, to me it's a no-brainer as far as the cost of this increase for us personally in our business. We have to be able to ship our plants out of state. For us, it's over 95% of our product. And if there's restrictions on that, even the amount of time that we're going to take and all that, that is the type of business we're in, and I need to be able to ship my plants.
Thank you, Amanda. Cody?
You know, I'm brand new to this, and even acquiring the funds to be able to become legal within the state of Oregon was a struggle. You know, I work a 9 to 5, and then I go home and I do my true passion, which is growing fruit trees and berry bushes. Um, I want to become certified organic, and I'm concerned about these phytosanitary or drenches that are not organic. These things are going to absolutely prevent me in any form from being able to do both of these. So it seems as if I either have to choose whether to ship out of state or whether I get to be organic. And that really hurts. Not only like emotionally does it hurt, but it hurts financially to even think about that. Then the trapping, I understand that the trapping alone, I heard through the grapevine that somebody's paying like 300 and something dollars for the year for trapping on their property. Um, that's a lot for me. You know, I mean, I'm being very real here. I made like $200 last year on my nursery. I'm brand new. I'm super small, but it really, really, really hurts, you know? So I just so y'all know where I'm coming from.
Thank you, Cody. I appreciate that. Ross?
Farming's not easy. It's gambling every day. Yeah, I mean, with us not increasing the fees, there is going to be this burden on the state. And for the nursery I currently work for, we ship to all 48 states. Unfortunately, we have a part of our sector of our business already in a Cat 3 status. So we've utilized our Oregon facilities in a very appropriate way to ship to out of Cat 1 to other Category 1 states. My hope still ultimately is through the ODA with education to our governor, because again, all of this comes back to the harmonization agreements to get our Category 1 status back. However, we can get that status back and beat that door to have the full understanding, to Mike's point, of what this really has caused for the largest over $1 billion industry ag sector in our state is still just mind blowing to me. I still just want to know, how do we educate the repercussions of this loss of funding?
Thanks, Ross. Cody, did you have another thought? Okay. Okay.
No.
We're a little bit past our time. I appreciate everybody's participation. I think we're going to wrap it up there. Chris or Kevin, do you have any last minute thoughts that you want to share before we wrap up?
I guess I'll just say, like, I appreciate the conversation here, even for those of you who are not members of the RAC. I hope that you found this informative. And kind of to Amanda's point, the OAN is, you know, along with ODA, we are providing information and resources on a regular basis. So you're welcome to refer to our website. Kevin, if you could put the link for the ODA Japanese beetle website in the chat. We are actively updating that with information, with links to the Oregon Association of Nurseries website with information. So that is being updated on a regular basis. And yeah, I'll just leave that there. I also do want to recognize this is an extremely trying time for the industry. Full transparency, it hasn't been a bag of roses at ODA either, as we navigate into this new world. So we're in it, and we're in it with you. And again, I do want to recognize that this was a rapid change in direction for the industry. That whiplash is going to last for a while. So I just thank your attention to the issue. Appreciate your continued partnership, and again, like, use this as an opportunity to have your voices heard.
Okay, Ross.
For some of the folks I could tell have not been at the ODA meetings and the OAN meetings, please, they are trying to do outreach as much as possible. And I don't think people probably didn't realize that Chris has spoke with each of these states to try to recognize our 2025 trapping records and doing as much behind the scenes as possible to help support. ODA recognizes they know we need to be able to ship our plants out of state. So just remember that, please. And thank you, Chris.
Thank you. And again, just for future steps, I'm going to put a copy of the recording of today's meeting on our rulemaking webpage. So if you have friends, family, neighbors, industry partners that did not have a chance but would be interested in hearing the conversation that we had this morning, that should be available this afternoon, providing my day doesn't blow up. If not, it should be definitely available by end of day tomorrow. We will work to get a breakdown of how many licensees by tiers, and Chris will send that to the RAC members directly. I will also post that on the rulemaking webpage so that everybody can access that information. And again, if you did not get an opportunity to speak today, but you have something that you want to share with the program or with myself, please feel free to send either us, Chris or Kevin, an email directly, or me rulemaking, and then I make sure that they will receive that. And with that, I'm going to stop the recording